y'all doing this morning? Having fun? Yeah? I'm loving the energy here. I love that I can see like everyone at a glance. It's very reassuring, I think, as a speaker to be able to see like the impact that we're having. And that's really what we're focused on with this talk is how is each person having some kind of an impact in their organization, right? Leadership doesn't mean that you have a particular title or a particular role in your organization. So to get us started, I'm Allison Pollard. I am a principal consultant with Improving here in Dallas. I'm an Agile coach. I'm typically brought in to help teams adopt Scrum or perhaps Kanban, and I focus more on the people side and the team dynamics. I do organize the DFW Scrum user group that meets every month. I'm also very involved in the Dallas Agile Leadership Network. Both are hosted at Improving, and we're very excited. We're moving offices in a couple of weeks. So we're going to have a new location in North Plano, and we're going to be able to house more people at our user groups. We have some different furniture that gives us a more flexible layout. In terms of nerd cred, I feel like I got to say something, right? Being at a DevOps conference. The best thing I got going for me, I feel like, the glasses. I take them very seriously in terms of my fashion sense. Thank you. Thank you. These are 2016. I got like two-tone colors going on. It was a very big decision in my life, so thank you. This guy over here, his first talk at a conference. Very, very happy to have DevOps Days, like looking for that in particular and trying to bring more people in front of the community. So welcome to my friend Zach.
Howdy, everyone. My name is Zach Cannon. I'm a software consultant at Improving Enterprises. Improving is a great company for many reasons, but mainly because they do encourage people to step up and take responsibilities more than their job role. And it's something I personally like to do when I see something that needs fixing, that nobody's maybe thought about or stepping up to. Improving always encourages that. I also like to help other people do that as well when they bring up an idea that they have and they don't quite know where to go with it. It's how to motivate people to step up and start these new ideas flowing in their current business or potentially improving as well. I wish I had a resume as good as hers, but I don't, so we'll not try to attempt to do that. So the spirit of this talk, the reason that we're talking about this today is Allison and I meet up quite frequently, once or twice a week, just kind of to talk about work. She's done a little bit of personal coaching with me, and it kind of just ends up going to just various things we've seen at the particular clients we worked at. And recently, our topics of conversations have been revolved around, we hear a lot of ideas coming at us from the various people that we work with, of ways to improve current processes, tools they want to use, changes they want to make, but they don't either know where to start or they just haven't started yet.
Yeah, and I noticed that a lot of the clients we work with, it's like people are waiting for permission. Like, I don't know if I'm the right one to make the change, and so they start looking up that organizational structure, right? Like, what is my boss going to think, or what is my boss's boss going to think? So how many of you guys are working in organizations where someone at the top said, we're going to start doing DevOps, or we're going to start doing Agile, right? A couple of you. And so that person at the top, like, they've heard these ideas. There's something called DevOps. There's something called Agile. Maybe it's Lean. It's a great idea, but there's a whole lot of change involved. And so they set that direction, but it's everyone else below them that really has to figure out, what does that mean for us, right? Like, what is the context that we're working within? What is driving the change for our particular group? And what does that mean for our practices? What does that mean for how we set up environments? What kind of tools do we need? Do we need to bring in outside consultants to help us find the way? Or do we need to self-study and figure out for ourselves, how do we get to where we want to go? But it's this idea that hierarchy, like this hierarchical organization, is going to be very slow to change if we're always looking to the guy at the top to tell us what to do. And because Zach and I work for Improving, like, we're a very flat organization, we also have a very entrepreneurial spirit. And so it is very much, if you have an idea, go do it. And as you do it, others will start to follow and support you. And we try to bring that same culture in with us at our clients. And so we'll start bringing in those improvements and making suggestions and telling people, here's how it goes, and we see who follows us and helps us implement that.
And I think, I don't know what the layout is here, how many people are in a managerial role, how many people are the boots on the ground doing the work, hands on the keyboard. I think because I'm the one who's usually boots on the ground, hands on the keyboard, that the best ideas and practices and tools to fit our needs now, they generally come from us, from community discussion, from saying, hey, I have this problem, what are the ways to solve it? Not necessarily waiting for leadership to say, hey, here's a tool set for you to use, or here's an ideology for you guys to adopt. It's more about what's going to fit our needs right here and now.
Right. So how many of you are managers or above in your organization? So a good group of you. And then the rest of you are probably more on teams or doing some of the actual work, we could perhaps say.
Okay, let's not get the managers angry here.
I know. But I think it's helpful to know, like, who is here at the conference, right? Because some of you are going to be going and visiting the sponsors and getting to, like, learn about the different tools, the different options out there. And I think you guys realize, like, who might be the best ones to make the decisions on what would work best for us? Well, it's be the people directly impacted by that. So getting rid of this idea of the hierarchy, how do we now recognize a leader in our organization? You know, if it's not based on title, what is it based on?
So we've tried to redefine, not necessarily redefine leader, but again, ask what does it mean to be a leader? Maybe when you don't necessarily have a name tag that says lead or manager on it. So we take a very general definition of leader. Leader is somebody who has followers, or who has an idea and starts to implement that idea and slowly gets people on board with that idea and to lead that idea forward. And again, because we're bringing specific tools and practices that are going to affect our teams directly, we feel that it is incredibly important and necessary for people who don't necessarily have the leader name tag to be the ones leading these new ideas forward.
Yeah, so we're going to start sharing a story, right, of what this looks like for a particular organization. So we wanted to talk about a large group that's trying to adopt test automation at various levels so they can start moving closer to, like, continuous delivery, because they've got a whole lot of steps to get there. And so it was actually two guys on one of their teams that, they're both developers. They have a very tight deadline, and they've been working on a lot of refactoring to take down some of the technical debt. And they realize as that deadline gets closer, oh my God, we're about to have a big testing problem. Because we've been relying on manual testing as an organization, what are we going to do? And the fantastic thing was, these are not tech leads, these were not architects in their organization. It was two developers, and they said, we're going to start writing automated tests, because that'll help us ensure quality. And we realized there's a little bit of a learning curve in figuring out how to do it in our environment, but we really think that's the best way to go. And they just started creating it. And that started to inspire other people to look at the problems that they were facing a little bit differently and ask themselves, how could we solve it? We've been doing a lot of workarounds. We've been living with a lot of these issues for a long time. Maybe there's a different way. Maybe there is something better. Maybe we could actually move to, doing a deployment at any time at the press of a button. As soon as our product owner or as soon as our business stakeholders say, that looks great, put it in production, how do we shorten the time to make that happen?
So these two developers didn't start with these dreams of immediate deployment. They were addressing a problem they had here in the now. They were facing a very up-and-coming deadline. They realized that testing was going to be the bottleneck. They actually reached out to the ops team, who's in charge of running full regression suites before they get their code changes into staging and eventually production. And they said, hey, can we leverage some of your automated tests? Well, come to find out, what the ops team had weren't going to address their goals. They're very surface level tests, and the ops team really relied on a ton of manual testing. So these two developers couldn't leverage those tests. So what they decided to do was, go online, try to find what's the most current technology they could use to automate their testing suite to help out their quality assurance people on their team, and they just started running with it. They got the agreement of the team, um, and then just started doing it. And that was about 2 years ago. And today, those ideas and practices have actually spread through the entire organization. Every team is doing some form of automated testing. And dialogue is actually open with the ops team now about how to use the testing framework and tools that the dev side made to increase performance. So it started with the dream of these two guys, and now we're actually starting to try to bridge that gap between devs and ops with the tools that we have now.
Yeah, and I love how that dream just sort of emerged from the bottom up, right? So we're going to talk about 6 ways that you can start becoming a leader in your organization regardless of what your role or what your title is. And it's actually quite simple, and we'll continue to use our story to show how that would work. So step 1 is just start. Just do something. You have an idea, you've seen a problem in your organization, you probably have an idea of what you could do about it. So what's the smallest thing that you can do to move forward?
So the part of the story that goes along with just starting doesn't actually involve these two guys. We obviously saw them start, we saw them seeing a problem, starting to implement a solution, and we know now that it has spread and infected the entire organization in a good way. The story that comes along with just starting is actually revolves around an ops tester who wanted to make a change, so she decided to move from the operations side to the development side of the client I'm currently working at. And she actually got embedded with a team that had these 2 developers on it. And because she realized how manual the testing was and how poor the ops regression testing suite was, she was not looking to just become another manual tester on this team, but to continue these automated testing practices moving forward with the goal that the ops team would use it. So she started just by researching and trying to figure out the best agile testing practices that the QAs on her team could use, and then started to just talk about it amongst the team and say, hey, I really think that these are practices that we should implement. She gave some great reasons why. She got other people on her team on board and allowed that team to move forward. She wasn't looking to change the organization. She decided to just start with the team.
Yeah, so she did the research, she started the conversations, right? Like that was her first step. And so from there, it is that start small, right? Who else can we, get on board with our ideas? Because she knew, she's not going to be able to write a full automated test herself. She didn't have that skill set. She needed to find a buddy. She needed to find a developer that she could partner with to help make that step happen, which is kind of where my buddy Zach comes into the picture.
Thank you for that handoff. So around this time, she'd already gotten, she'd worked with the 2 developers on that team who started the actual automated testing tools. She had starting to try to get the culture, the principles embedded in the team, and they'd actually started to write some fairly good regression testing suites they could use after they finished the story, before they were going to promote it up to a release branch. They had a great regression testing suite. The problem was the programs they made, the tools they made to run these tests were always a secondary thought as far as quality and speed and performance goes, because we let them run overnight. And as Allison was saying, this QA tester realized that this was a problem, that the performance was low, but this was something she couldn't solve herself. So at that point in time, I'd actually been embedded with the team. I was working off-site at the time. And so she basically presented the idea to the team and said, hey, I see that performance is an issue and upkeeping this large test suite is an issue because some of the tests are getting outdated and failing. And you really can't, use a regression suite to say if something's working when 50% of the tests are failing because you hadn't touched them in 6 months. So she said, this is a problem. And that she kind of encouraged me to say, hey, or she encouraged me by saying, do you mind going to solve this? Do you think this is something you'd be interested in solving? And I took her up on that and started on the side trying to figure out ways we could get these to run nightly, better ways to upkeep the test, maybe overhaul the entire framework. Not with the vision that everybody's going to be using this, but just to try to help a friend out who said, I have a problem. And that's kind of led me to become kind of a key piece in this as well. I'm now kind of a go-to guy in that organization when everybody has questions about the framework. That's kind of let me be in a kind of a leadership role as far as the technical solution to this culture shift goes.
Yeah, so all of that because she recruited like one other person, right, to help her out with her idea. So starting small. Now the next step, and this one and the one we'll cover right after, can really go in like either order. But I think about investing intellectually, right? You put on your smart person glasses and you go learn some things. What are some of the ways that you guys go out and seek information and gain knowledge for your jobs? What are the things that you guys are doing? Google! I love the Google. What else? Go to conferences, yeah, totally. Reddit's helpful.
You can, there's
Stack Overflow.
You can go to Reddit to actually learn things? I thought it was just to waste time. Oh, DevOps.
DevOps. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different resources out there, right? You know, places that you can seek information, gain some knowledge. I know Pluralsight has been very popular at some of my clients, you know, watching some videos, learning about some different technologies, going to user groups, going to conferences, just talking to colleagues that are at different companies, right, and staying in touch with them and what are they doing. Now, this particular organization that Zach was working at, he was very fortunate that the management did believe in investing intellectually in the people that they had in their organization. And so they started to offer things like a book club and some training courses.
And one of those training courses was actually a test-driven development and test-driven requirements course. So how can the entire team approach a problem such that they frame the problem in testing steps, and so at the end, or they frame the problem in maybe like a test table or expected inputs to expected outputs, and so that at the end, after they deliver the story, they also deliver working tests, meaning all their requirements are built into a regression testing suite, something that they can use to speed up deployment, speed up that testing at the end. So this QA person who brought the ideas to the teams was also on the team that helped make this this automated testing class, and because they had such passion, which we'll get to later, for what they were doing, and because they were able to sell intellectually why this was an important thing, we had more and more teams signing up saying, hey, that looks like something valuable, that looks like something that can help my team deliver more quickly. And slowly but surely every team in that entire organization has now gone through the class, and they have an intellectual reason to want to bring these testing practices to their team.
Yeah, so the beautiful thing about the approach that they took, right, sending everyone, like the entire team at a time through this training class, it gives everyone a common language, right, and a common understanding that they can work from. And so the next thing that you can do as a leader to help drive your ideas forward and get some more buy-in, we call act passionately. And this is really about like finding your community, or like finding your tribe where you are. Those people that are on board with what you're trying to achieve and want to help make that happen as well.
And so acting passionately can help you get those people that maybe the intellectual appeal to why you should do something or why you should join a tribe didn't quite touch with. So just having not just a good reason to do it, but also something you can see in your mannerisms, and as you speak about it, not only helps get those people on board, but it also helps make you, or makes the person who's delivering these ideas, appear to be kind of not necessarily a figurehead, but somebody you can go to when you have questions. When you want somebody to answer a question, or you have a particular problem, at least I know me personally, I don't want to go to a person who's going to give me the answer begrudgingly, but somebody who really wants to help bring this idea to light and share this idea. Those people are much more fun to talk to, and definitely have a bigger impact on the organization.
Yeah, so like how many of you are the go-to person perhaps in your team or your organization on something? Yeah, I figured here at a conference we would have a number of people that have become that go-to. You're already the leader, you know, in some way, shape, or form. And so what you're hoping to do is find others that you can encourage to do the same. So not everything's on your shoulders, perhaps, but you know, you have other people that are available and helping to share ideas, share information, so that you can get more DevOps, more agile, more lean, more whatever it is that we're trying to become within our organization. Ultimately, so we benefit our customers, right? So the next step after Act Passionately is really empowering others to start, right? So we have found our tribe. We have found the people who are interested in what we're doing. They're coming to us and seeking information. And every once in a while, they'll have their own ideas, right? They have some suggestion of what we could be doing differently. Now, you could add this to your own personal backlog, perhaps, and it starts to become incredibly long, and you're not going to be available to work on all of that. Or you can encourage them to take the action. Go ahead and contribute and pitch in. And they start taking more ownership of where we're headed. And that is encouraging them to become leaders. And so you have this like propagation, right, throughout the organization of people that are really contributing and fully engaged with what we're trying to accomplish.
And I know from a technical perspective, nothing will get me more involved than contributing to a solution that you already believe in, but maybe necessarily haven't gotten hands on the keyboard to solve before. So in this organization, as we're starting to roll out these automated testing practices, all the teams are starting to use them as they complete their stories. One of the parts of the acceptance criteria is they have delivered tests. So we're getting a large number of these tests built up, and we slowly integrated it with our build systems. They're executing nightly and after each build. And one of the issues that we come to, because we have such a large volume of tests, and it does take, one of the issues, because we have such a large volume of tests, is we haven't necessarily put a lot of effort into performance, and we haven't put a lot of effort into data integrity. So as we are running these tests, we are getting failures that are more like false negatives. The test failed because a specific piece of data that you wanted wasn't there, because we are testing against live services, live data. I know that's not necessarily a great thing. So people are bringing up kind of the same problems, and they're definitely, like Allison said, there's something that I know about, there's something that the other developers who've kind of taken this on to be their number one side project know about, but we haven't addressed them mainly for a reason. We have too much to do, and they're too low priority on the backlog. So as people do come to me and say, hey, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem, I always say to them, you are more than empowered to go in and try to come up with a solution. I'll tell them what we've tried, what hasn't worked, what we have kind of working. And most of them, sadly, people who bring me these ideas or bring us these ideas say, something like, well, I can't do it, I'm too busy too. But we actually did get one or two people who, when they brought up the issue of data virtualization, we need to virtualize the data that'll make tests run faster and more consistently, have said, oh, I didn't know I had the authority to just go ahead and make the code changes. And I was like, yes, you do. And that has gotten two more people on board to solve a problem. They're taking ownership of this, and hopefully they're going to become the go-to people once they solve it to roll out to other teams. Well, how do you virtualize tests that aren't running as expected on a nightly basis?
Yeah. So the last one here is going to be centering on the idea itself, right? If we're trying to move to continuous delivery, being able to push a button at any time and put our work into production, know that we've ensured quality, and that our customers are getting the full benefit of our latest features, there are so many steps involved. And that's why they need leadership coming from all levels of the organization to make it happen. And so the idea is, again, we want to form a community around this idea rather than rely on the hierarchy of the organization. The director can very easily give an inspiring talk, and everyone will say, yep, I'm with you, I'm on board. But are they really going to do much about it, right? The hard work sometimes has to happen by the people that are like at the lowest level, the people that are on the teams, that people are, the ones that are seeing the problems, right in front of them every single day. You guys are the ones with the most information on what is going to be the right solution. And so sometimes it is taking on a little bit more work up front so we can have an easier life in the future, right? We're not going to have to do this manual testing all the time going forward because we've started automating it now, although there is a learning curve to doing that.
And this has definitely made myself, the other developers, the QAs who have kind of led the thought movement on that side, to become more invested in the final product, to care when those tests are failing, to feel the pain of other teams who maybe have failing tests as they're attempting to promote their code up to get ready for production, And that allows us not to say, haha, I'm sorry you have failing tests, I have other stuff to do, but to actually go in and take a little extra time to sit down with them, to help them solve their problems, and to teach them maybe the correct ways of approaching certain testing problems so that they don't have these in the future. That's made a community who really cares not necessarily about the technology or the tools, but the ideas and practices that we're trying to aspire to going forward.
Yeah, and the thing that I love about this story is obviously so many different people are contributing to making it happen, and every single one of them is being a leader, but they're not doing it to get credit in their organization, right? Those two guys that faced a problem with their project and needed to get the testing done, if they were doing it for the ego, for the boost, right? Oh, I'm trying to get a promotion, I want to be the first guy to like solve this problem, they would probably be very disheartened. But knowing that it's taking 2 years, right, to try and get the rest of the organization on board and moving in this direction, because change is very slow in some large organizations. But because they did it, you know, with the idea of this is the right thing to do and this will solve a genuine problem, and they got others also seeing, hey, there are problems and we can also do things to help solve them. And everyone gets centered on this idea of like, what's the next important thing? What's the next improvement that we can make? They all still stay connected to that vision, right? And it keeps them going. Rather than, I think in a lot of organizations, we see burnout. You know, those few people that are doing everything and trying to make everything happen, they're so isolated and they're so overworked that they just can't sustain it anymore. So this is all about building up that community, right? Having that support system, having other people that are contributing to that same idea, so you don't feel like you're getting overworked and burned out as a leader. You've inspired other leaders to step up and help share that workload. So that's it, right? Those are the 6 steps. Just start with something. You know, what is that problem that you're seeing? Like, what is that opportunity where you can do something differently in your organization? And then how do you start small? You know, find one person that you can perhaps talk to and, you know, get some buy-in from, someone that you can get that early support system.
Next, invest intellectually. Know what you're talking about, know why you're doing what you're doing, not only so that you can appeal to those people who need intellectual buy-in, but also so that you can, you know, combat those who might not think your solution is the right one.
And then acting passionately, right? So now we all have this information because we've invested intellectually and we build up our tribe. And then that last step, right? Now we need to all center on the idea, and so we're all moving in that same direction. So that's it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. So a couple of questions, maybe one for you, Allison. And I can hand you the mic, too. So what you're talking about is like a bottom-up kind of approach
Yes.
to creating change.
Yes.
That reminded me a little bit of Linda Rising's Fearless Change book.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the people I've been coaching has been such a fan of Fearless Change and the sequel to it that he's like constantly telling me the different patterns.
Yeah, there's like a software patterns for getting people on board. Like one of them is bring cookies to the meeting. Seriously, it's like that's a pattern.
I do that all the time.
Yeah,
people
bring
can
cookies.
Vouch. Yeah.
Yeah, what's another pattern that you?
Oh man, I know he told me about one the other day, and I'm totally blanking on it.
Yeah, I think one of them's like make sure that somebody's going to agree with you before you get to the meeting.
Mm-hmm,
you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing interesting about your talk, and maybe either one of you can take this, is when you're talking about a bottom-up type of approach in leadership, supporting that, it might change who the right leaders are. Whereas maybe before you had the know-it-all,
right.
You know, I have all the answers type of person, but now you have somebody different. What does that person look like?
Well, I know like we're both kind of big on like servant leadership, and how do we listen to those around us and like share the best ideas. Again, not seeking credit, but really trying to do the best things for the organization or for the team. And so I think part of the challenge when we were trying to do like a top-down change, we were expecting the guy at the top to be the smartest one in the room, and that is a lot of pressure on his shoulders. Again, knowing that he's very disconnected, right, from some of the things that happen on a day-to-day basis. Versus in this approach, you know, if I said the person on the team needs to go and talk to their boss and try to explain like why you want to introduce a new practice or try to introduce a new technology, you might get shot down, right? Like that person's just not understanding the problems that you're bringing to them, and so they don't understand the solution. And they might also think it's a lot harder, like they're having to say yes to something very big, like a very large commitment. Versus if you can go ahead and start doing it and start showing the success on your own, it's much, much easier for your boss to go, oh my God, I love what I see, how can I support you, and make it much easier for you to continue with that. So that's really how I approach it.
That's great. And from my experience, when you do a change, like we were talking about this in the previous one, like nobody's job is do the change. They always, everybody has real jobs.
Right.
And so, you know, maybe something that the sponsors may not tell you up front is that a lot of this is powered by somebody having a vision and getting it done, and that passion that they have is what fuels the change.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't replicate that passion by just somebody with a higher job title coming and telling everybody, we're going to do this,
right.
And you still have your same jobs. You know, they'll go home after 8 hours and keep living their lives just normal.
Yeah, and actually, I feel like Zach, you should kind of speak to this, because when you are working in some organizations, there are folks that, you know, they have been, you know, perhaps a little bit beaten down over time, or like this is just the norm and how things work. And so like, how do you bring that energy onto a team to like reinvigorate their ideas?
I really don't have necessarily a way to do it. It's just be open-minded, be observant to those people who might have an idea when you're around the water cooler or when you're not, you know, in a formal meeting. They'll have these ideas, but once you go into that meeting, they tend to shut down. They tend to not say what they just told you 10 minutes later. So, for example, if you have a solution, you're about to go into a meeting to discuss maybe like the technical solution for a story you're about to do, or for a technical challenge you're about to face. And as you guys are talking, kind of getting prepared for the meeting, somebody's like, yes, I've been facing this problem. I think I have a solution. But the second you go to the meeting and the person who always talks tends to start talking, those other people tend to shut down. So if you can recognize that you have, you know, a coworker who has been beaten down this much or has not spoken up, and maybe encourage them to speak up, or if you yourself are an outspoken person, kind of raise your hand and then point to them,
yeah.
Or something like that. That has really helped me out and helped get the more introverted people on the teams that I've worked with to air their thoughts out.
Yeah, especially recognizing like every complaint means that there's some kind of a dream or like a wish that person has that's going unfulfilled. Now, the only way they know how to
That's really
communicate
good.
about it, right, is somehow complaining. But if you can actually like ask enough questions to get them to open up and figure out what was the thing that you really wanted to have happen? Like, what were you desiring? And now that like we both understand it, how do we make that, you know, happen?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for speaking. Thanks to Improving Enterprises for being such a great sponsor in the
Thank
community.
you.
Yep.